You're listening to the Breakaway Wealth podcast, the show that helps you build wealth faster, think outside the box, and break out of the herd. Here's your host, Jim Oliver.
Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today, John Oberg, Dr. John Oberg. John, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
John, before we get started, because there's a lot of stuff, you mentioned a couple of things before we got recording here that I'm excited to dive into. So before we do that, introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. I'm John Oberg. I grew up in Los Angeles, traveled all over the country, and landed in Austin, Texas. And have had a life that's been I've been privileged, and I'm here kind of by accident. I never thought I'd be in healthcare in the way that I'm in healthcare. Never thought that I would be talking to people about the things we talk about today. And I feel lucky to be doing it. I've got a great family, great kids, wife. I'm living the dream right now, Jim, living the dream.
I love that. John, where'd you grow up in LA? See, I didn't know that. I grew up in LA too.
Did you really? What part?
Inglewood. Yeah,
I was in South Pasadena, which was an idyllic place to grow up. And, anyone who, grew up with me knows it was a really great way to grow up.
That's awesome. So it's funny that we both grew up in California, but like a lot of Californians, we don't live there anymore.
That's true.
All right. So let's talk about health because, it's funny and wealth and how they go together. And John, I think they're both this journey. And I think what we get in trouble with, both in health and in money or building wealth, is chasing the shiny object. Hey, I'm going to do, and people out there, please don't hate me, but I'm just using this as an example. I'm going to do 75 hard, right? I'm going to do these 75 days. I'm going to change my everything, and then I'm good. Right? Or I'm going to do a keto diet, or I'm going to do carnivore diet, or I'm going to do, and what I've found both in wealth and in health is it's really incremental changes and habits but they go hand in hand, wealth and health. Talk about that.
Yeah, there's so many directions to take that. There's the literal health direction, which we can go. There's the mental health direction, which is how is your identity tied up in money, which is a whole conversation we could have. And then there's all the habits part of the conversation. And so for us inside of our medical practice, we talk about how to get healthy for the long term in a sustainable way, so that having a really rigorous diet may not work for everyone on day one, or a really rigorous exercise routine may not work. So we talk about internally radical incrementalism, how small a change can you make? Someone comes to us, they're like, I want to make all these big changes. We say, that's great. How about if we make a much smaller set of changes first? We try it for a little while, see if it's working for you. And if it's not working for you, let's make some adjustments to the plan until we dial it in. And then over time, lots of radically small changes make really big change that's sustainable for an entire lifetime. And then, why you change makes a difference too, right? You have to have a good why.
Absolutely. It's so funny that you say that, because somebody was working with this new coach, and she's like, okay, literally first meeting last week. And she said, I need to understand your why better. So next week, that's all we're going to talk about. But you said something there is, I've gone to, I've kind of found what works for me. I have a one-on-one trainer that I work out 2 days a week. Then she stretches me and massages me 1 day a week. And then I do two days on my own. And then I do one, just kind of volume day is what I call it. But so that really works well for me. But the reason I hired her is the first question she asked me is, what's your goal? What are you trying to do? What's your vision? And I've been to so many trainers and so many financial people, by the way, that would they don't ask you. They just, hey, what we have is the best, right? Our program is the best. Well, you don't even know what I'm trying to do,
I
right?
think that's the key, right? Like I tell people all the time, it's like picking the path is really unimportant if you're climbing the wrong mountain. So
Yeah,
if everyone's not aligned to the right mountain, then like the what path conversation is just too early. And even worse, people are like, how fast can I get on the path? It's like, well, hold on.
right,
Before how fast, you got to pick the path, and before the path, you got to tell me the mountain. And people who don't want to do that work, like, it's not foo-foo work. Like that's the important work. Otherwise, you end up someplace you don't want to be.
right. Yeah, yeah. You accomplished all our goals. Oh, those weren't your goals. Yeah,
Right. And
yeah,
that's a lot of people. That I mean, we project our desires onto other people so naturally as a being that we've got to be careful about that. And so yeah, I totally think the why matters.
So what's the biggest roadblock? Because again, for me, when I talk to people every day, and I'm not saying like that I'm in the perfect shape or whatever, but people ask me all the time at 60 years old, like, what are you doing? You're gaining muscle, you're getting leaner, you're hitting the golf ball further and further. Like, what are you doing? And then I tell them, and I think you really don't want to hear what I tell you because you're not going to do it. And I've only come to that conclusion
Right.
after referring like 50 people to my hormone doctor, to
Yeah.
my who's like I shouldn't call her my hormone doctor, but my doctor that checks all my hormones, checks, that talks to me about peptides, that talks to me
Yeah.
about uh, longevity and the benefits of this medication or that medication or these supplements. It's work and it's hard. And these are kind of two questions, I guess, because but most things in life, are hard that are worth it, right? So maybe back to, how do you get somebody to accept that it is hard and it is a journey? And wow, that sounds like I got to do a lot. I mean, what, I don't get to eat pizza and cheeseburgers every day? Well, I don't know if I want to give that up. Like, how do you get somebody to see? Maybe it's the type 2 diabetes that you talked about, because like if I had a disease, then I'm like, oh, I got
Sure.
to make changes. But are those going to be lasting changes? Those are other questions. But start with what I just said about how do you get people to say, okay, I'm going to do it?
Yeah, I think it's about inertia and not biting off more than you can chew. Like, I think, no matter where somebody is, like, if you came to someone who's never seen kale and carrots, and your first answer was, you need to eat kale and carrots every day, like, there's a 0% chance they're going to get there. We
Yeah,
had a patient that came to us, and they were having some mental health issues with early onset and early stage dementia. And their spouse shared with us they were only eating ice cream and drinking chocolate milk. That was literally the only caloric intake they were having. And they said, we're not going to change that. And our answer was, no problem. We can help. Would you be willing to change the flavor or the brand of ice cream? Like, sure, we'll try that out. And by changing the brand and the flavor of ice cream, we actually reduced their fasting blood sugar by 100 points in 7 days. And that built trust. And then once they felt better, they're like, oh, well, what else could you do? And it's those just, one person, we had to change their coffee creamer. Like that was the one little change. And so but the why matters. And so I'll take you to another patient who came to us, and they didn't want to take insulin. They didn't want to, do dialysis, and so they were going to be dead in 60 days. And so it came to my desk, and I called the family and said, "Hey, we've got to get you a referral into palliative care and hospice because you're going to be passing away in the next, 2 to 3 months, and we want to make sure your affairs are in order." And they flipped out, like, "Well, wait, what do you mean?" Well,
yeah,
I'm a behavior guy. Our medical doctor shared with you this was the. Well, I didn't hear that. It's like, okay, well, we can get the doctor back on the phone. Like, let me take you through it, and slowly, gently, and with no rush, took them through it. And by the end of the day, they had insulin in their house. They were injecting. They were worried because they didn't know how to inject insulin. Hadn't shared that with a provider. Were embarrassed about that. And when we had like a no shame, no guilt environment where we said, "Hey, we'll get on a video call and we'll do it with you." And
yeah,
not just once, we'll do it for your first 3 days, 4 days, like however often you need us to get on the video with you, we'll just do it with you. And so it was those tiny little things that get people moving, right? And so I think just changing the inertia, like just changing direction slowly. Like if I talk to you about, you know, going harder and doing more, like you're already so far down the path, it's easy to make that type of change.
yeah,
But for the person that's never seen kale and carrots, like forget about it. Like that's never going to happen. And so we talk about the why. And so when you're aging, we talk about balance, mobility, strength, where to start, how to start. Sometimes that means just getting yourself to the mailbox and back.
Yeah. You know what I love about that is, there was a big wake up call for me there were two wake up calls for me. Is one, when I moved to Florida part time in 2011. And so that's 14 years, I was 46 or whatever it is. Okay.
Yep.
And I saw people that were 60 that were like using walkers. And I saw people that were 88 playing tennis 7 days a week or 6 days a week. And then when I realized that I can't run out of money. So those were like two like wake up calls for
Yeah.
me. And so talk about like I don't think people really realize the vast differences in aging when you take care of yourself, when you don't take care of yourself. You talked about kale and carrots. Like, I'm putting this as a placeholder. Don't let me forget to talk about our food today and our food supply and the problems with that. So, but we'll get to that. Back to the differences that you see in your years of doing this, the differences in aging, and like, which one are you going to choose?
But yeah, I mean, I think everyone can see it, right? They can, and we're seeing that those problems are starting younger and younger and younger. Like when I started my doctoral work, you thought about chronic disease, and you were thinking people in their mid 40s and older is where it gets really serious. But now we're seeing like people in their teens that are having some of these chronic diseases that we haven't seen before. And look, you talked about the food supply. It's true, the system is broken. Everyone's trying to fix it. Everyone knows there's problems. So our approach is, look, we know the system is not set up for optimal success right now. We accept that. We
Yeah.
accept there needs to be changes in the system. But there are things you can do as an individual right now today that if you want to actually improve your health, despite the system, you can still do that. And you can do that despite your income. You can do that despite your background, despite your education. Like there are things we can all do. And that was really the work that I did, when I was getting my doctorate. It was like, how do we go fix these problems for underserved populations, low income? Like, how do you solve it right now at the individual level? Because the policy level is going to be too late for some people. We should still fix the policy problems. Don't get me wrong, but we really focus on how can someone take control of their own healthcare right now in a way that's cost effective and that they can see a difference like in hours and days, not months and years.
I love what you just said there. Take control, because
Yeah.
so many people, whether it's their wealth, I'm putting money in my 401k and the government, okay, that's not how you build wealth, right? And that's not even the goal. We're told a lie way back when, that we build this nest egg and then someday we live off that nest egg for the rest of our lives. I have clients that are in their 20s and 30s that have cash flow coming in from real estate and businesses that'll go on forever.
Yeah.
Well, reasonably
Sure.
forever. But the thing is that, so you, again, the why, and then where it really gets into the health problem and the wealth problem is, who do I trust to tell me how? Right? I got my why. I have my board up here. It has my wealth and my health and wellness goals and my vision board. I can tell you all of them. But then it's like, who do I trust to take me down that to get me there? And
Yeah.
that's a tough one.
Yeah, I think what we talk about, and I talk about this in my TED talk. Like you need to have an expert, who's willing to listen to you. And so like it has to be the expert and the patient in our world that work together to put together what we call an expert plan. And then you have to share that plan with a community of people who are going to be supportive, because believe it or not everyone's going to be supportive of your plan. And so it's find the expert who's willing to work the plan for you together, but it has to be the plan custom made for you. And if they just want to give you like an off the shelf plan, like kale and carrots, by the way, I like kale and carrots.
I
I'm
do
not
too.
saying anything wrong, but it's a great placeholder. If they just want to project onto you like their plan, it's just not going to work.
I totally agree with you. And I would add that there are people out there that want to see you fail because they aren't making those changes. And I see this at my club when I go play golf, and I remember I was trying out some different driver shafts, and I wanted to go to X or to Tour X, and they're like, you don't need to hit the ball that far. You don't need to play those back tees. I'm like, but I want to. Like I want
Right.
to challenge myself. I want to get better and better and better. And my friends will say to me, "Well, I don't have to eat like that because I'm married." And I'm like, "I hope your wife doesn't hear you say that because don't you think
Yeah.
your wife would like you to be in better shape, to be, whatever?" So it's people will try to bring you down as you're building wealth. Oh, real estate's really risky. Are you sure you want to get in real estate? Businesses, have you ever owned a business?
Sure.
All of these things people want to bring you down. Having that coach and having that person that can guide you, right,
Yeah.
is essential because you don't have all the answers when somebody says, "Oh, you shouldn't do that."
Oh my gosh, if I have all the answers, I'm in the wrong room. Like I need people smarter than me in each of their areas. And look, yeah, I'm a serial entrepreneur my whole career. I've done all of that. My wife works in, in the corporate America in the tech field. She would say what I do is risky. I would say what she does is risky.
Yeah.
And we're both right for ourselves. Like we're both wired differently because we've each found the right mountain for us. Right. And so if you're climbing the right mountain and you're building the right skill set, then you can go out and say, okay, how do I, funny part, we use similar financial advising in wealth building, and but from two very different parts of the world.
Yeah.
And so I think it really means you have to have a customized plan, right? And that customized plan, hopefully you find someone who's done it before you. Like if you're trying to like figure it out through trial and error versus going to like the frontier of knowledge, like I want to start any problem set with what everybody else already knows to see if that solves the problem quickly. And if not, then I can go try to figure out my own thing. But trying to figure out my own thing early on, like yikes, that's just like that would be like going out to my car and trying to rebuild the wheels every time I got in it every single morning. Like that sounds so ridiculous, but I see people approaching their days like this, and it's like it's not unless you really enjoy doing that, which I don't. It doesn't make sense to me.
So you mentioned something there too that stands out to me is understanding the problem, right? So how do we understand the problem with wealth or with health or anything really? But in health, it is, hey, I don't like the way my clothes fit, or I don't like that I got winded playing golf, or I have to move up a tee because I'm not as strong as I once was, or in wealth, it's I mean, it's oh my gosh, I got this bill, and how am I going to pay it? Or it's like there are things that happen to us, and then there are big things that happen to us, right? So
Yeah,
you might get diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and you go, oh my gosh, I got to make some changes right now, right?
yeah,
Or like your guy, if a cardiologist says, hey, if you don't start to strengthen your cardio health, you got about 10 years or something. Like where acknowledging that there's a problem and talking about the problem. The like with wealth, the problem with growing up this money to this nest egg and then living on it for the rest of your life and hoping that you die before you run out of money is there's sequence of returns. There's all kinds of things that can erode that. In health, it's the same thing.
that's
Is
right.
you're eroding. I always feel like you're either progressing or you're regressing. You're not staying the same in any of those things.
I think that's true in your body. Like it's your muscles are growing or they're atrophying, right? Hypertrophy or atrophy, and so you want to be growing, all the time. And so I love. I was listening to Peter Attia recently, and he and a number of people like him talk about health span. So it's
Yeah,
not about how long you're going to live; it's like how
love
long
that
you're going to live healthy. And
health
and
span.
so my wife and I have done this exercise where we think about like in this next 10 years, what are the things we want to do? In the next 10 years, what do we want to do? The next 10 years, what do we want to do? And we want to be really healthy so we can travel and like not just like go on a cruise ship. We want to be able to walk 1,000 stairs and do,
Yeah,
and so the question becomes, what are the things we have to be doing today? And it doesn't have to be totally sacrificial. It can be enjoy today so that you can enjoy tomorrow, but you have to learn the reasons to enjoy today. Now, what that meant for me was that I had to figure out ways to work out that I enjoyed that were sustainable. I had to find ways to eat that I enjoyed that were sustainable. And so in our medical practice, we talk about move more, move to the right. Move more means more exercise. So wherever you are, do a little bit more, and then move to the right for us is like thinking about processed foods on the left and whole foods on the right. Just get to whole foods. Like, and that doesn't mean if you're at a steakhouse, you shouldn't order the steak. Like you
Right.
definitely want it, but you don't do that if you're not at the steakhouse. Like if you have a choice for, chicken, turkey, fish, whatever, like, and you're not at the steakhouse, then that's probably the right answer. And so, but again, it has to start slow, has to start small, like radical incrementalism. How do you make those really small changes?
I really, excuse me. I really like that. What you just said there is like, for me, what's sustainable, like, and I tell people this when they ask, I eat the same thing pretty much from breakfast to dinner. And at dinner, I change it up. Right. So dinner is, but when we get done with this interview, I'm going to have my cottage cheese for the morning,
Yep.
like and then at lunch, I'll have a piece of chicken. And I mean,
Yeah,
it's just what works for me during my day. And,
totally.
and then at night, then, like I'll have whatever that'll be my, variety, but I don't need variety in the food because I think of food differently than I used to think of food. I would think, hey, you know what sounds really good for breakfast is bacon and eggs or something. I don't know what would sound good because now it doesn't sound good. But like, but
Well,
then
you've changed your taste buds. That's important, by the way. Like
yeah,
our
I've
taste buds
changed.
change when we eat better. Our taste bud, like I used to not enjoy raspberries and blueberries until I like cut way back on sugar, and
Yeah,
now berries taste so sweet and wonderful to me. But that wasn't the case before, and it wasn't the berries. It was me. It was my taste buds.
it's so funny when you talk about sugar because I think that we could do a whole segment or a whole show on sugar because
Oh yeah,
I like when I talk to friends of mine, and I had again when people come to me and they seem sincere. So I'll say, this guy came to me and he says, "Jim, I'm going to your hormone doctor. I'm doing this stuff, but I can't get under 240 pounds." And I said, "Well, what are you eating?" "Well, I'm not." I said, "Listen, I see you drinking a lot when we're playing golf, and what are you eating at
yeah,
home?" See, I don't have any of that stuff in my house. There's like zero of it. And
yeah.
he's like, "I have a mini Dove bar before I go to bed," and I'm like, and his wife says he has two or three. Right. So I'm saying, well, you're eating ice cream every night before you go to bed. I mean, like that. I,
Yeah,
yeah. That's weird. You can't get under 240 pounds.
yeah,
Because it's like facing reality. Like, I think
yeah.
there's some part of us, and you're a lot more educated than I am, but there's something in there that we want to stick our head in the sand and say, this isn't happening, this isn't happening, this isn't happening. And
Well, if we
once
think
you
we think we think one little thing is like it's going to be okay, right? It's just one little Dove bar,
yeah,
and so we're my so I'm partnered up with Dr. Dustin Williams. I'm a behavior doctor. He's a medical doctor, and we're writing this book about how the body works for like our patients.
yeah,
And people don't realize it's like all you're doing is gumming up your system, and you don't recognize you're doing it. And so we're trying to give people like a really kind of guided tour through the inside of your body to understand why it acts the way that it acts. And I think once people have that understanding, it'll be easier for them to find their why, but it still goes back to their why. My why is going to be different than my wife's why, different than my kid's why, different than your why. Like everyone's got to find their why.
yeah. I think that's so important. And I know there's been a lot of books written on that, a lot of articles written on finding your why. And it's really creating that vision. And I get people that tell me all the time, I can't see a vision of what I want to look like, what I want to do. And you know what I did? And this is just what I did is I took a picture of myself like a year and a half ago and just like in some shorts, no shirt. And then I put it through AI and I said, I want bigger arms. I want, like 10 pounds of muscle. I want abs. And I found this thing and it did it. It did this picture. So then I took this picture to at the time, my trainer, and I said, I want to look like that. And he said, I don't know if that's realistic. I said, okay. So then I took it to this other trainer and she said, well, you're going to have to get your hormones in check. You're going to have to eat better. You're going to have to work out like this. And it's going to take a year for you to have abs. She said 6 months at minimum. And I'm like, okay, all right. But I can look similar to this. And she's
Yeah.
like, absolutely. So like, to me, that helped me create not only my why, but my vision. And I'm like, oh, I'm willing to change. I mean, it's not sacrificing. I mean, eating the way that healthy is not sacrificing. You'll like it better. I mean, somebody told me that 20 years ago. I didn't believe them. but I
Well,
know,
you have to teach people how to make it better. When I was in my 20s, I used to think it was a good idea to take a frozen piece of chicken and put it in a really hot pan because that would cook it the fastest. And I
yeah,
couldn't figure out why it tasted like a hockey puck when I was done.
yeah,
And
right,
then someone taught me how to cook chicken. I was like, this is amazing. Like if you thaw it out the day before and you cook it appropriately, it actually tastes amazing. And it didn't take me much longer. Right.
right,
I just had to learn how to do it. And so I think there's a part of just like, hey, have you learned how to do the things you enjoy doing? And then if someone doesn't know what their why is, like Jim, I would tell them like, here's what you do: take a piece of paper and just write down everything you ever thought you wanted. I'm talking about material things. I'm talking about experiences. I'm talking about how you want to look, what you want to own, memories you want to have. Like write it all down. Like just every single thing you think of gets a line, and do that for like a week.
yeah,
And keep that document. And then the next week, go down and write down why next to every single one of them. And some of them you're not going to be able to have a why, so feel free to cross them off, right? And you cross off a whole bunch of them, then you just pick the ones that are most attractive to you and the shortest term, and do a bunch of small ones first, and you get confidence that you can actually start changing the way you want to change.
yeah. You're exactly right. Like the guy I was talking about, the first thing you do is you go into the freezer and you throw out the Dove bars. Okay, that's a small little thing. Now you
Yeah,
don't have them. You can't have them tonight because you don't have any. So even if you want one, you don't get it. So
yeah,
it seems simple and it seems dumb, but like I don't have, like there are times if I want to watch football and have chips and salsa, I do that. I go buy the chips and the salsa, but as soon as I'm done, I throw the whole bag away,
that's
right?
right.
Like it's gone. So
Yep,
it's not like I'm going to have it tomorrow night and then the next night and then I'm out, or that I better go buy more. It's like, it's just these little things.
that's right.
And you know what? It's funny because I look forward to, like, I use cottage cheese as an example. Sometimes I put red hot on it. Sometimes
Yep.
I put it in my eggs, and I always thought that was gross. And then I realized that it mixes in with the eggs, and it's like having cheesy eggs, right? So
Yeah. I love that. I love that you're checking things out for yourself. It's like,
yeah,
how do I go find the things that are going to work for me, and how do I make it exciting for me?
yeah,
That's really the key. I mean, I think we get to see so many patients with so many different approaches. One of the things we talk to our providers about is like, you have to make sure you meet the patient where they are. It's too easy to say, well, cottage cheese and eggs is the answer. Well, no, that's the answer for Jim.
right,
Right.
sure.
Like, and so we have to make sure we keep, and that's the hard part, by the way, is always coming back to the individual to meet them where they are. Like, that's the hard work that we have to do.
I totally agree because I have friends that fast 20 hours a day, right? And they
Yeah.
eat 2 hours a day. I I just don't like that. It doesn't work
Yeah.
for me. Like I think about food way more than I do when I eat every couple of hours. And I'm not saying, and these guys are in great shape and they're lean and everything else. And they talk to me about, mental clarity and how great it's just not. I mean, I've done it, I've
Yeah.
tried it. I just don't. I mean, it's not workable for me. So if somebody says, "Hey, I'm the fasting guru," I'm like, "Hey, cool," but not for me. So
Yeah.
talk about how you work. Like somebody's in the audience, they're like, "Okay, you've got the behavior side, you got the medical side, which right there is a differentiating factor. I mean, you have a unique approach just because normally you get one or the other, right? And
Yeah.
so that's really cool and intriguing. Talk about how, like, somebody sitting in the audience, not in Austin, Texas, but in Pennsylvania, how could they work with you?
So we're a medical practice, and that means we have to be licensed in the state to practice medicine. So we're licensed in Florida, Texas, California, Oregon. Everything we do is telemedicine based, and we'll be in almost all of the states by the end of the year. So if someone's looking for help, I'd say just give us a call. And even if we're not licensed in your state, we can help you find somebody that'll help you, and we can tell you what questions to be asking of your provider. But yeah, I mean, when somebody comes to us, they come in just like a regular medical practice, although we do everything differently. Everything from the paper intake, like everything looks different about our practice. I tell people we do crazy things. Like we read the patient's chart before we talk to them. I know that sounds like it's nuts, right? Like, and I think most doctors want to do that. They really do. But we take the time to go collect, in some cases, more than 1,000 pages of background. We put it through AI to make sure we understand what's most relevant for the providers to go look through. And then we have a much more kind of well grounded conversation. for conversation number one. And yeah, so we're at Priscina.com, Precina.com, and come check us out. Even if you're not one of the states we're in, come talk to us. Like, we want to hear from you. Definitely want to stay connected, and send out the information we're sending out to our patients. But we're happy to connect with everybody.
So, John, this is probably a question I should have led with whatever number of minutes ago, but what got you into this? What got you? Because obviously you're passionate about this.
Yeah.
Like, tell me your journey to get to where you're at now.
I started a company that dealt with healthcare, and I got to see all the struggles that people went through. But then my mother-in-law got sick, and she had a type 2 diabetes event that was totally avoidable. And I couldn't get her doctor on the phone for hours. She ended up in the hospital for 4 days, $100,000 of Medicare bills, which, by the way, thanks, since you helped pay for that, so did I. All avoidable, by the way. A couple of insulin injections, she wouldn't have been in the hospital. That's less than $100,000, by the way. And
Yeah.
so I called my friends at USC. I said, "Hey, I want to come back. I want to get a doctorate. I want to solve type 2 diabetes." And they were like, "That's cute. We've been working on that for like 60 years, but you can come back and pay your tuition." But we've and so our first pilot study, we took people who were really sick, average A1C of 9.6, and if you can drop that by 1 percentage point from 9.6 to 8.6 in a year, you've got a $1 billion drug. We went from 9.6 to 6.4 in 12 weeks. And then
Wow.
we kept people there for the next 2 years. That was our first study. Our second study is not released yet. We've just finished collecting data. We took people from 11.06 to 7.88 in 90 days. We got 30% of them off insulin at 6 months. Like, we're doing clinically just ridiculous things right now. And so the goal is to like find ways to make this inexpensive enough that 1 billion people can improve chronic health. So it works for type 2 diabetes, it works for hypertension, it works for heart failure. We think it's going to be working for COPD and asthma. So there's just a lot of things that are benefiting from this treatment methodology that we came up with, and it's been a lot of fun to help patients get really healthy really fast.
I love that. I always say, like when I'm driving down the street and there's like a heavy person walking or running, or at the gym, like somebody who I can tell they're overweight or they're unhealthy and they are uncomfortable at the gym. Like, I cheer for them, man, because I'm like, it takes guts to walk into the gym and start lifting weights, or even walking on the treadmill, whatever you're doing,
Yeah,
like, you're show up,
yeah,
and so I'm passionate about that. I think it's really cool that how passionate your answer just was right there. And those results are amazing. I was married to a type 1 diabetic for 16 years, and I understand diabetes, I think, better than most average people, and the problems and the management. And if it's avoidable, like type 2, like in that A1C, her A1C is in the range that you were talking, 6.2, 6.3, somewhere in there.
that's great. Yeah,
And
that's great.
and her doctor tells, like, hey, you're one of 2 people that are that compliant.
Yeah,
And if you're around there, I think you can have a normal lifespan.
yeah,
If you're 10, you're not.
that's right.
And you're gonna, I've had a friend who was type 1 who had both legs amputated. I mean, I've seen, like, and then he didn't live a long time after that. It's
Yeah,
when that happens in your 60s, your body doesn't
yeah,
like that. I mean, it's just, this is a serious thing. And it's funny because we're talking all about health, but it ties into wealth, because you can't have the energy and everything else to be that serial entrepreneur if
yep,
you don't have energy. And I mean, I wake up in the morning at 4:30 every morning, and I never hit snooze. It's not like I always did that, but I love getting up in the morning, and
yeah.
I love going and working out first thing. And it
Well,
just,
and being sick costs a lot of money. Like, it's expensive to go to the hospital. Like, I
yeah,
don't remember the percentage of, like, bankruptcies that happen as a result of healthcare, but it's a lot. It's too many.
too
And
many.
so I mean, if you get healthy, it's just less expensive.
Yeah, no, I love that. And again, John, I could talk about this all day. And in our community, maybe we could do a workshop and have you just kind of go through some of just some things that can help people. I'm all about helping people
Yeah,
be
love it.
happier, healthier, wealthier. All right, John, through everything that you've gone through and the education, and love USC. I grew up in Inglewood, so it wasn't that far
Yeah,
away, and always that would have been the place I would have loved to play football if I had just a lot more talent. But
Yep.
what's the best advice anybody's ever given you along your path, John?
It's the same advice I gave to my kids when they turn 18. I write them a letter and I say there's three decisions you make throughout life that really impact you a lot. And so it's the decision of who you spend your time with. And that is, primarily a spouse. If you're married, your friends, like that's one of the big important decisions you make. What you do for work, because you spend so much of your time working, and then what you believe in that's bigger than yourself. So,
Love that.
for me, I'm a spiritual guy. I'm a Christian. So, but I think those are the three decisions you make that impact your happiness the most in your life. And so, knowing how to make those decisions well is really, really important. And so be thoughtful about those three decisions. And I write them a letter about how to make decisions and how to be grateful in the face of hard decisions like that. And, my son just asked me for another printed copy. He keeps it, and I guess he reads it more often than I'd hoped, which is great. And so I think the best advice I got was be really thoughtful about those three questions.
I love that. I love that. All right, John, if God came down from heaven and only allowed you to retain the knowledge that you've received from one book that you've read, what would that book be?
You teed me up earlier. My easy answer is going to be the Bible, and then the Book of Wisdom in the Bible would have to, probably that would be where I'd start. But if you took that off the table and said that just give that to everybody, the other book I would say is Leadership and Self-Deception. Leadership and Self-Deception is an amazing book by the Arbinger Institute that talks about how you can relate to other people and how to understand and accept people in personal and professional ways. So the professional version is Leadership and Self-Deception. They wrote a second book with the same exact topic from a different perspective called The Anatomy of Peace. I think it's one of the most important books in our society today. I think everybody should read one of them. If you're a professional, read Leadership and Self-Deception. If you're not a professional, read The Anatomy of Peace. They have the same concepts. Incredibly important reading for anybody who's interested in relationship personally, professionally at all.
I love when people come up with books that I haven't read. So I've got those in the notes, and I'm going to order both of them because I love to read.
I'm going to warn you. The first time I picked up Leadership and Self-Deception, I started reading it, and it was a Friday afternoon, and I couldn't put it down. So I ended up staying up until 5 a.m. on a Saturday,
Did you really?
just to get through I couldn't put it down the first time. So not everyone I've given it to has had that same experience, but I just couldn't put it down.
You know what? I love that, man. I love books like that. Like I said, John, we could talk about this all day long because it's something I can tell you're passionate about, and you have the knowledge and skill base, and you got the partners on the medical side. And I mean, I think we probably could have talked about hormones and nutrition and whatever for an hour, but
and bring me back for identity role theory, man. If you want to talk about like behavioral health and money and how those two things relate, like we could talk about how people get their identity tied up with money in good and bad ways, and that'd be a fun conversation to have.
I would love that. I would love to do that, and let's just do it. Let's just book it because I can tell you, I grew up very poor, Inglewood, and I always thought, what do these people in Palos Verdes know that I don't know, or that people in this neighborhood don't know? And I always thought net worth was your worth, right? Like, and so
that's society did that to you on purpose, by the way. Like, I'll tell you how that started, why it started, how we get out of it. Like, let's have that conversation. That's fun.
Do it. If you don't have the link, the schedule again, I'll send it to you. We'll get it done.
Great.
John, thank you so much for being here. And I'm looking forward to, because I really want to talk about that. It's just that when you come on and you say, hey, this is my expertise, I'm like, I really want to help people get healthier, and I really want to help people get wealthier. And it's like, okay, how can I, like, what can somebody in the audience here today that just says, I'm going to get started on this path? And
small steps. Get small steps, Jim. Get to making radically small steps.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, audience. I'm so grateful to have John here today, and grateful that you're here listening. And we're going to wrap this up like we do with the incredible words of Earl Nightingale and The Strangest Secret. Whatever you think, you will become.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Thanks for listening to the Breakaway Wealth podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If you want to start increasing your wealth building ability right now, go to community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free, in-depth training designed to help you build real, lasting wealth. See you next week.